So welcome to Becoming. And I am really excited about this masterclass because we are going to be teaching manifestation in a completely new and very different way to what I've done before. And essentially, this is information that I've shared before, but the way in which I'm sharing it will be very different. So there are going to be a whole lot of topics that I include, but you may not necessarily always be able to pinpoint them. So I'm really moving away from talking about technical terms in terms of, gene keys and human design and the law of the different universal laws. However, they are all intertwined in this training. So if you listen carefully, they're all there, but it's going to be spoken about in a very easy to understand way. And I think you're going to have a lot of like, that's where I've been going wrong in my manifestation practice, or that's what I've been doing where I haven't received the results. So I've got a presentation for the first part to share, and then I'm going to be talking. And for those that are live with me on Zoom, I really want us to be interactive, and I want you to let me know what bombs I'm dropping that really resonate with you and what aha moments you have, and we'll go into a Q&A session, just the people that are on Zoom later. So welcome to Becoming. We're going to be discussing the 4 levels of manifestation, the 3 hero archetypes, and then what it means to take responsibility. So that was not supposed to be there. Right. So this is not another typical free training. It's going to teach you quite a lot, and you're going to learn how to move through the different levels of manifestation in this training that's happening from today, Monday and Tuesday. And we're also going to learn how to sift through the conflicting information, because who of you, especially those that are live here on Zoom with me, how many times have you heard one piece of information about manifestation and then literally the same day you hear a completely different contradictory piece of information? So I know that a lot of people get really confused when it comes to putting in a time to your manifestation practice. I've personally removed time frames out of my manifestation practice, but for a lot of people, they say that you should put a date and a time to when you should manifest something by. And we'll get into talking about that, because technically neither are wrong. It's just what works for you and what level of manifestation you're on. Okay, so we're going to sift through the conflicting information and actually talk about the principles that work. And you're going to learn how to take action in manifesting the bigger things in your life. So we're not just talking about the fun things, and obviously carry on manifesting the fun things like the parking spots or free tickets to an event, or like gifts that you were like, I really feel like I've literally just done this in my life. I was like, I really want a spa day. And last night I got an early birthday present from one of my good friends, and lo and behold, it's a spa day voucher, and totally manifested that. And I'm sure you've had experiences like that before, but we're talking about the big life altering things here, where you get to create your dream life, where you get to manifest that promotion or that career trajectory that you want, where you get to manifest the abundance that you want, where you get to manifest those soul mate relationships, whether it's with an intimate partner or friendships. Your soul tribe is so important to growth in this lifetime, and you call that in from the frequency and the vibration that you put out into the world. And essentially, by the end of this training, and if you haven't guessed it already, this is going into the launch of Unleash Your Hero. So I want to be fully transparent that yes, we are launching Unleash Your Hero, and it does give me great excitement. And yes, I will be selling to you throughout this 3-day presentation, and you will also get a lot of information. So you will learn how to unleash your hero and live an incredible life, because that's really what manifestation is about. It's about curating a beautiful life, and then all the things that you want to manifest just amplify what you've already created for yourself. So if you are new here, and I know we've had a couple of new people sign up that might be watching the replay. So I know a lot of people that are on Zoom with me right now have probably heard me talk about myself a lot, but I'm going to reintroduce myself, because as I grow and evolve throughout my journey, I feel like I do become a different version of myself. So I'm Kylie. I'm the founder of Mind Your Hero, and I'm a mom to a 5-month-old. I'm a wife to an amazing husband. I'm a South African living in Dublin. I'm a 3-5 emotional generator. But essentially, the reason why I'm qualified to speak about manifestation is because I truly am living my dream life. I started my hero's journey when I was, sure, I can't actually put a set point date, but I know that there was an absolute rock bottom moment in my life when I hit 27. And this is a very special week for me because it's also my birthday week. And around my birthday, I always get super reflective and deeply entrenched in my gratitude practice, because on my 27th birthday, that is when my life changed. I hit rock bottom. I realized that I wasn't living the life that I wanted to and had imagined for myself. I was chasing after what society had deemed to be successful and to be worthy and to be loved and celebrated and revered. And that was a corporate career that actually wasn't paying me enough to even move out. And I was living with mom. I was completely single again and again. And all I wanted was to one day have the time and financial freedom to have a family. And spoiler alert, that's exactly what's happened. So here I am today, about to turn 33. And I would say that the 5 years that it's taken me to get here is relatively a short amount of time in the bigger scheme of things. And it's because I live these principles that I'm about to teach with you today. I'm not somebody that was especially gifted. In fact, I work with clients that I believe are even more powerful healers than I am, or even more knowledgeable on certain topics than I am. It's just, I really do live the principles I teach. And I really embody everything manifestation. It becomes my entire life. It's not just a practice I do an hour a day. It's everything I am. And that has attributed to me living in a beautiful apartment in Dublin with my incredible husband, my gorgeous 5-month-old, who's like the light of my life. And I have soul tribes here in Dublin. I have amazing friendships, also back in South Africa, of course, but I've really created a life where it literally lights up my soul every single day. And that is something that is so special. And again, something I do not take for granted, especially around the time of my birthday, because I know what it was like to reach my rock bottom. And we're going to be talking about exactly the level I was in today. So that is a bit about me, but I know you're here for the good stuff. So here's the training part, which I'm really excited to share with you. So you may, if you've been in the Heroverse for a while, you may have seen the slide before, but we're going to go so deep into this that you're really going to understand this. And essentially, there are 4 different levels to manifestation, okay? And depending where you are in your journey, you'll be on a different vibrational level. And I want to state categorically that being on one of these is not bad or better than the other. You are still worthy. You are still incredible. There's no hierarchy to the system. It's just a system that helps you understand where you need to heal, where you need to tweak things in order to move up so that you can manifest the bigger things. So for most people, when we enter the world of manifestation, we start on the oh, woe is me, the misunderstood hero. And we'll go into this a lot today, because today we're really going to live in the responsibility part of this masterclass, okay? Now, the oh, woe is me, the misunderstood hero, is the hero where it's a version that believes everything is happening to you. It's like, oh my word, I got stuck in traffic again. It must be my luck because I'm always stuck in traffic, and I'm always late for this because traffic, and nothing ever seems to go my way. It must be unlucky, and everything goes right for Susie Jane down the lane. Susie Jane down the lane is my favorite new person, just by the way. She gets used for every example, but it's the version of you that's like really almost despondent and disheartened in life. And can you manifest on this level? Yes, of course you can. The truth is that we're manifesting all of the time, always. But when we're in this state, we're manifesting at a level of 10. We're just going to call it 10 because it's easy for us as our human souls to understand when we put values on things and numbers on things But just remember, this is not a hierarchy system. This is just telling you how you'll be vibrating. So when we talk about high vibration and low vibration, it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm high vibe, so I'm better than everyone else. All it means is that I'm vibrating at a faster frequency. And other people that, or even myself, when I'm vibrating on a lower frequency, it just means I'm going slower. So when you're vibrating at a level of 10, it means that things are coming to you at 10 times the speed. Now, obviously, we want to get to like the infinite speed where things are happening lightning quickly. It's really coming into your life, and we'll talk about how to get there. But it's really important to understand the misunderstood hero, because the misunderstood hero only exists because they feel misunderstood. They feel like they've never been heard in their life. They feel like they've never been understood in their life. And they're acting out of this pain of, I'm not enough. And I know this so deeply to the core of my being because I've been there. Everything I did in this level was from the place of, well, I'm not enough, so I'm going to try and prove my worth. And we're going to talk about what that looks like today. And in order to go from the misunderstood hero, you then need to get into the second level by taking responsibility. And that's what we'll talk about today. But when you get into this level, you become the bossy boots, the micromanaging hero. So this is where you're like, I know I can create my life. I know about these principles of manifestation. And now you're in the state where you're trying to control everything. So it's kind of like you want to manifest a fish for lunch, but you're in the river. And you can see the one single fish that you want for lunch, but you have to swim upstream to get it. And you're swimming and you're trying really hard with all your might and all your power and everything. And eventually you're like, oh, yes, I've got the fish. But if you just learned how to move into the third level, which is to trust the process, you would have actually sat back, relaxed, allowed the river to take you downstream, had your net open because inspired action is still a part of the process, gone downstream, collected an entire bag of fish, and had a feast for lunch. And that's what being the inflow liberated hero is about. It's really about trusting the process. And we're going to talk a lot about trust on Monday. The all-enlightened unleashed hero is a level of manifestation that you've probably also experienced when things go lightning fast. So you've probably already experienced all four of these levels, just so that you are aware, at different stages in your life, and you will experience them all again at different stages in your life. Because how I view the manifestation process is that we're never moving backwards. It's a spiral upwards. And with the spiral going upwards, there's lines that go down these spirals. And when you start out your journey, you're like, oh, okay, everything's working against me. Okay, but I have to take responsibility. I'm taking responsibility. Okay, so you're moving up. And then you're like, oh, but like, I'm going to try control this. And this is very much the masculine energy. So I'm going to do everything I need to do. I'm going to put all my effort in. And you're not using the feminine, which you need the push and the pull of both. You need to be able to take action and receive simultaneously. And it's about holding duality, which is a really interesting concept to start exploring. And then you're like, okay, oh, I'm feeling so much love. I've removed ego. I'm working from the space of being open-hearted. Oh, boom. We're on another level, but I'm feeling like everything's happening against me again. What's happening here? Oh, just a new level, new devil. Okay. You're going to go through different revolutions in your life. And with each cycle of revolution that you go through, you're going to have different challenges that help strengthen you, because the people that want the most in life, and I know that if you are on this training, you are one of those people. You have high goals, big ambitions, and you don't know how to always get there. And because you have so much ambition, because you want such big things in your life, you need to expand to become the energetic container that can hold that frequency of that desire that you want to bring in. Now, you're not going to go and get that through just remaining the same. If you think about going to the gym, right, and you want a really cute, peachy butt, you're going to have to go and do squats or lunges. And what happens in that process is that your muscles are actually ripping and tearing apart to come back together to be super peachy. Is that a comfortable process? No. Like, there are some days where I know I've done leg day or glutes day, and you're like, I can't walk down the stairs today. I can't walk down the stairs today. Is that comfortable? No. But you know what the result is. Now, when life gives us challenges, we're like, but life's just happening to me and I don't want to be doing this. But it's just the day that you can't walk down the stairs. And it is temporary discomfort, but it's helping you become that energetic container for bigger expansion. And I'll help you throughout this training see that bigger expansion that you're bringing into your life. Okay. So the all-enlightened unleashed hero is when you work from a place of love. And I would say, though, that this level of attaining this level of frequency, you're not going to be consistently in it. Our aim is actually to get to this frequency for the majority of the days that we live. Okay, so it's really, really important, and you'll understand this more as we go along. So within each of these layers, you're going to have the anti-hero, the hero, and the superhero. And these are the three archetypes that exist within all of us. And we need all three. We even need the anti-hero. The anti-hero is incredibly important to our journey. Okay. But a lot of people try to ignore the anti-hero or banish the anti-hero because they're scared of the anti-hero. But the anti-hero has actually only been born out of protection, because in our subconscious minds, our primary function of our subconscious minds is to protect us. So the anti-hero only exists to protect us. And this is a version we need to embrace, because when we embrace the anti-hero, the hero is born. The hero can only exist because the anti-hero was there first. And you will understand this more as we go along the training. But the hero is actually the version that we need to strive for. But what happens is that people think that they need to strive for the superhero. And the superhero is the all-incredible version of ourselves that emanates into our aura from who we naturally are. And the superhero is that version of you that is felt and seen by others. And I'm sure it's sometimes difficult for us to feel this from ourselves because it's what other people feel from us. But I'm sure you've had an experience where you've been in a room and this person walks in and you're just magnetically drawn to them. And you're like, wow, I want to be around that person. I want to know more from that person. There's something about that person. Or perhaps there's been a person who's presented themselves. And I think of business surroundings when I think of this version of this person, but it's a person that has like the CEO mentality where you're like, wow, that person is so successful, but they're not trying to prove that they're successful, but you can just feel it. Or a person that exudes luxury without having to wear Louis Vuitton or, something like that. It's like that person exudes luxury and I want to be around them. That person exudes respect and I want to be around them. You feel it. It's a tangible presence. And that's what happens when you live in the hero and you embrace the anti-hero. This naturally becomes you, and it becomes an emanation into your aura that everyone can feel around you. But it's not something you should try and strive for, because when you strive for this, you ironically end up in being the anti-hero. And that's the concept we're going to explore today. So that's the basis of this training over the next 3 days. And it's really important to understand those concepts because we will be coming back to them time and time and time again. But let's start with talking about responsibility. And I've had to write down notes because there's just so much to talk about with responsibility. So what does it mean to take responsibility? Well, it's actually, you're looking at your external environment, which is your bank account, your relationships, your career, your everything. That is your environment. When we talk about environment, it's not just about where you live, although that does make a part of this, but it talks about every aspect of your life. Okay. Now, when you're looking at your environment and there's something that you're not happy with, you've got one of two choices. You can either leave it, and if you're not changing, like choosing it to change it, then it's going to remain as is. Or you can say, something's not quite right here, and I know that I have it within me to change this. So whatever you aren't choosing, I can't remember the quote. Whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. That's the quote. Whatever you're deciding to not change, then you're choosing for it to remain as it is. And I know that if you've been drawn to a training like this, then 100% you're wanting some sort of change in your life. And maybe you already are living an incredible life, but you want to make it even better. And if you want to make it even better, you're in the right place. Because taking responsibility is not just about taking on more, which I think a lot of people think is. So when we start off on our manifestation journeys, this is what I see happen to so many people. I've seen it happen to clients. I've seen it happen to friends. I've seen it happen to myself. I've seen it happen to so many people. When we start on this journey to manifestation, we learn about all these amazing principles and we're like, oh my word, this is life-changing stuff. Like, I know when I first discovered manifestation, I was like, oh, I can change things just from my mind. This is incredible. Like, this is magic. This is literally magic on earth. And what happens is that you start to try really, really hard because you're like, I know I can do this. I've heard these manifestation principles. These are incredible. And I know that if I just put in the extra effort, I get to change my life. And trying really hard looks like, well, I'm going to start meditating every day. I'm going to do the journaling. I'm going to do all these different things. I'm going to have the morning routine and I'm going to keep myself to a high standard because that's taking responsibility. And in the process, you either end up hating it or you're doing it because you think it's going to give you the exact result that you want. So I know that I've experienced this personally in my business. I hired a coach back in 2020 or 2021. It was a very big investment. And in that year, he got me to do a lot of different things. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my wholehearted effort into this. So I was doing 2-hour morning routines. And I'm not saying that it didn't have profound benefits. It really did. But I was doing it with the wrong intentionality because I was doing it because I thought it would yield me a specific result. And it didn't yield me that specific result. And I thought that I was banging my head against the wall over and over again because I was like, but I'm trying really hard. I'm trying so hard. But that's the thing. Trying really hard is not going to bring you anything because you're trying, right? And in the process, you're burning yourself out. And this is what creates the anti-hero. When you're trying too hard, it's often because you're trying to prove yourself. And you really have to sit with asking yourself this question, why am I doing so much? Why am I moving into this place where I'm trying so hard to do all of the things? Is it because at some level, I believe I'm actually not worthy of my desires? Is it because at some level, I believe that I've never been seen. I've never been heard. I've always been misunderstood. So now I really have to get my message across. So I'm going to try even harder and I'm going to do even more of these things so that people will see me. And then you somehow come across the concept of frequency and vibration. And you believe that what you put out, and this is true, what you put out into the universe, you'll get back. So now we slip into another very dangerous path where you believe you have to be really nice to get what you want. And this looks like, okay, well, we're going out with a bunch of friends, so I'm going to buy everyone's drinks because that's a really nice thing. And if I'm putting myself out there and I'm giving all this abundance to the world, then I'm going to be met with it in return. And what happens is that you're the one looking at your bank balance at the end of the day, now having a panic attack and going, but like nobody respected that. Why? I feel so heartbroken. Why? Like I'm the one that's always doing all these nice things for everybody else, yet nobody's giving me any respect in return. And I've literally had a friend like this. Well, they're no longer a friend, but I had a situation with a friend many years ago where whenever we went out, that person would always buy me an extra glass of wine. And I had a very strict, if I'm going out for a drink, I will have one glass and that's it. And I used to do it from many different perspectives, one being health, one being budget, one being, just general awareness of what alcohol does to you. But I had that one glass rule. But because she also knew that it was part of a budgetary thing that I was doing because I was saving to go on overseas trips, she was like, oh, but I'm going to buy you another one, even though I had said no. Now, there's a really interesting mirror that happens here because my not enoughness was attracting her not enoughness. My not enoughness was, I don't have boundaries. So I'm just going to let anybody treat me any which way because I don't have boundaries, right? So I'm going to let people do everything for me And if I'm not happy with it, I'm just going to let it sit because I'm a nice person. I'm a nice person and I'm not going to put in the way that I communicate and everything. Her not enoughness was, I need to really prove myself to be a part of this friendship group because there was a huge group of friends. I brought her into this friendship group and she was trying to prove herself. And so she thought that the way she could prove herself was by buying everyone extra drinks. And at the end of the day, she snapped. She snapped. She got so angry. She was so hurt. She was so upset because, pardon, she was like, but nobody ever buys me a drink. I'm the one that's always, and we're like, but we didn't ask you. We didn't ask you to buy those extra drinks. You did it. But she was feeling so hurt and so misunderstood because, well, nobody ever gave her the same respect. I wasn't respecting myself with my boundaries and communicating effectively. She wasn't respecting her own self and was just pouring out of this empty cup. And in return, she got nothing. I felt irritated and angry. She felt irritated and angry. And eventually it ended up in, well, we're no longer friends. There was a huge fight and all of that, but it was a consistent act of, I'm just going to be this nice person and I'm going to do everything for everybody else. And when nobody does anything else for me, that's when she snaps. And this is what being the anti-hero is. It's when you're trying too hard. It's when you're acting from a place of feeling guilt, shame, embarrassment, fear, all of these perceived negative things that we become this overachiever in a way. We're trying to prove everything. And this is actually just born out of the anti-hero. Now, the anti-hero is there for a very specific reason. It's there to protect us. It's there to help us through life. It's there to give us feedback. But what happens is that now this person, we're going to call her Susie Jane from down the lane, that was buying all the wine, she's going to feel very, very hurt. And she's going to move into a space now of, well, I'm never going to buy anybody else drinks ever again because that's just not how life works, right? And that part of her is now going to protect her. So maybe I don't know what Susie Jane from down the lane is doing anymore in life, and I do wish her all the best. But if I had to imagine what that future would look like, she probably would go into a space of not wanting to give again, or not wanting to receive anything either, because she saw what receiving did to other people. And that would have created a limiting belief. That would have created a mindset block in her mind of how the world works, right? And unless you take radical responsibility for that behavior, you can't move up into the next level of manifestation. You can't. And this is how we start to take responsibility. And I'm going to give you another example of how we stay in the misunderstood hero, because what happens is that we start doing the self-reflection and we go, okay, I've given from an empty cup. I haven't respected myself. So now I need to do what we call boundaries. And there's this term, boundaries, that I think is misunderstood. Because boundaries for people means that you need to put in place these hard, rigid rules of how people get to treat you. But we're going about it the wrong way. So boundaries for a lot of people look like, well, I'm going to speak my truth, and this is what I expect of you. And it comes across as being a bit of a bitch, right? Boundaries are not about being a bitch. Boundaries are something that you need to treat as something so sacred, as something so respectful. And when we move into treating boundaries from a place of respect for ourselves, for the others that are around us, something happens. Something happens where we start to understand ourselves and the others in the same room, and we understand their pain and where they may be reacting from. So this is how the whole situation could have been very different many years ago. Hi, Susie Jane from down the lane. I just want you to know that I really see and value and honor that you're wanting to buy this extra glass of wine for me. And thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. But please know that I love you just as you are. You don't need to give me any gifts. And I'd actually really appreciate it if you didn't buy that extra glass of wine, because I'm not going to drink it. And I wouldn't want you to feel hurt and despondent. Oh, okay. Thank you so much for letting me know. Like, I really appreciate that you've saved me money. I don't feel like I'm pouring from an open cup and you're seeing me. Thank you. So much difference. So much difference. That's how we implement boundaries. But I've seen so many people implement boundaries and then going into overdrive of trying to enforce them, because we're now proving that we have boundaries. I have become so fortified with my boundaries. I don't even talk about my boundaries with my friends, but they know they exist. Why? Because I've become the hero in putting place boundaries, and my superhero instills them for me naturally. Yes, I've had to obviously enforce them a couple of times, but a really good example that comes to mind is when I was having Liam. I didn't even mention to my friends that I didn't want to see them for 2 weeks, but everyone knew that they wouldn't see me for 2 weeks. And why was that? Because I was so boundary, but in such a loving and nurturing way. I was doing what was right for me, what was right for my family, and people didn't even question it. They didn't even ask. They knew. I didn't even have family wanting to come visit before 2 weeks. In fact, they came after the 3rd week. That was spectacular. Spectacular, almost unheard of. But people really respected my boundaries without me having to prove that I had boundaries. And how did that come into place? Well, it's from firstly taking all the lessons that I learned in the anti-hero version of myself. All the lessons I learned in the anti-hero version of myself, the version of myself that felt guilty, that felt shameful, that felt fearful. And I took time to really reflect and honor that version of myself, to lovingly, warmingly embrace her, hear her needs, see that version of myself. And from that, take those lessons, alchemize them, and become the hero. And the hero is a version of myself that has become so well versed in communication. When I say that I've never had a fight with my husband, like a horrible fight, we've never had a fight. But what we have learned how to do is communicate effectively. And we have hard conversations with people. Now, something that I have is a 5th line in my human design profile. And what this means is that people will look to me as a hero that can fix all their problems. And if I am not good at putting in boundaries, that can be very, very tricky and can really lead to really complicated situations, because people are like, but you're the person to fix all my problems, so why aren't you? And I have to communicate and say, I can give you the tools, I can guide you, but I can't be the person to fix your problems. You have to still do the work. You have to still do the reflection. And just from understanding this concept, I really have become so good in communication. And another thing with my human design is that both my husband and I have undefined throat centers, which means that sometimes we don't have the words to authentically express how we're feeling. And this is why I love doing masterclasses, because when I'm around other people, I get the words that I need to express myself. And in environments where we're in restaurants, so we actually, every week, we take time out to go to a public place and to talk about our weeks, to talk about what we experienced in the highlights, in the lowlights. We talk about what we're grateful for, what we need to work on, what we expect of each other, what we don't expect of each other, where we need to support one another. And those conversations aren't always easy. The first few were really tough because I never knew how to honor my worth. I never knew what it was like to truly love, appreciate, and honor and respect myself. And those conversations were really difficult in the beginning. But the more I respected myself, the more I learned how to place boundaries with myself first. And we're going to talk about that because that's a really important part of the puzzle too. The more it became easier. And that is why we've never had a big fight. We've had really uncomfortable conversations, but we've never had a big fight. And putting in place boundaries with yourself, I would say, is the first place. So if you say to yourself, I'm going to go to gym today. Now, please don't go and say, I'm going to go to gym every single day this week, and then beat yourself up on the Sunday when you've only gone 3 times. Take it down a chunk. Take it down a chunk. What are you committing to today? Don't commit to 5 things, commit to 1 thing. If you're a manifesting generator, maybe commit to 3 things, because that will light your sacral on fire. But commit to 1 thing. Today, I'm committing to exercising my body, which is something that I know I'm not good at doing every single day. Perfect. Did you get to the end of the day? Did you exercise? Great. That's the first important part of respecting and honoring your boundaries for yourself, right? And the more you start to stick to your word and have the integrity with your word, again, it comes back to language. Language in your manifestation practice is so important, because the language you speak into the world is the language that is casting spells. It's why spelling is so important. As you speak, so you create. And that goes through everything. It's not just about the manifestation practice. It's the same as going to gym. And last night I did the most unreal call in Mind Your Body, where we spoke about the athlete's mindset. And we spoke about how going to gym for the hour a day is not just about the progress you'll see. It's also about the other 23 hours and how you spend your time doing sleeping, recovery, resting, your mental aptitude. Everything is going to be part of your progress if you're a competitive athlete. And everything is the same with your manifestation. So when you start your manifestation journey, I will say that having a routine where you do sit down and you practice your journaling, where you practice the words you're speaking, where you practice your intention setting, is going to be very important, because it's probably something that you haven't done before. I will say that I no longer have a strict routine, but it's because I'm living in level 3 most of the time. Yes, I experience times where I'm living in level 1, 2 of the manifestation levels, but I'm mostly living in level 3. And that means that I have more flow. But in the beginning, to move from stage 1 to 2, you have to take responsibility. And for a lot of us, we lack the discipline. So we need those routines. We need those structures. We need to put time frames on things, because it helps us take responsibility. It helps us strategize things. It helps us live in alignment. And that's great. That is great if that helps you take responsibility. Just don't take responsibility from the point of trying too hard and then ending up back in the anti-hero phase, because that's where you're going to self-destruct and self-sabotage. And we don't want that, okay? So that is part of moving into responsibility. It's to understand yourself so fully. It's to reflect on all the different parts of you, to love and honor and accept that anti-hero version of yourself. And when you start doing that, when you start to really respect yourself, it emanates into your aura, and all of a sudden, people respect you. The universe respects you. And what happens when people respect you? Well, they're happy to give you your advice, or not advice, they're happy to give you the things that you're looking for. Right? I think about raising my child, and he is obviously the light of my life. I want to protect him. I want to honor him and nurture him and all of that, but I'm not going to give him to just anybody to look after, right? I'm not going to give him to just anybody to look after. And if you think about that, he is the most precious manifestation. And the things that you're wanting to call into your life right now are the most precious manifestations. And the universe is like, I've grown this, I've nurtured this, and I really want to give it to somebody, but I'm not just going to give it to anybody. I want to give it to somebody that I know is going to take responsibility for this beautiful manifestation. And I'm only going to give it to this person once they're ready. So I'm going to make sure that they're ready. I'm really going to make sure that they're ready. So because I'm the universe, I'm going to put in place this little challenge just to see if they're ready and how they would handle it. So the person that I'm going to make sure can handle my child, well, let's see how they'll cope when he has a meltdown, when he's screaming and crying and they don't know what to do. As a mom, I have my own intuition about my child. Nobody's ever going to look after the child the way I do, but I'm going to observe how somebody else does that. And if they can't, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to take my most precious manifestation. I'm going to hold him. I'm going to cuddle him. I'm going to do what he needs till he calms down. Okay, he's ready to go again. Something else might trigger him. Okay, I'm taking my precious manifestation back. And this may have happened to you in your life. I remember times where I was manifesting Lloyd. Well, I was just manifesting a partner. And I was starting to respect myself. I was starting to do the work. And the universe was like, okay, we're just going to give her a little bit of a test. Here's a person that almost ticks the boxes, not quite, but we're just going to throw that person into her path. Now, I could have very easily, because I knew that this was happening at stage, I could have very easily been like, well, I'm just never going to find anyone because I've now had this person again. And then you start to generalize, which is, oh, all men are assholes. If I'm saying all men are assholes, of course I'm going to attract that, but I didn't. I was like, okay, the time that really changed everything in my life was a time where a relationship still hadn't worked out. And I was like, okay, there's messages in here. What are they going to say to me? Okay, well, I didn't listen to my guts when there were clearly red flags. Why is that? Okay, learned those lessons. I also didn't take responsibility for how I was showing up. So I let this person walk all over me. I diminished my own light and I had no self-worth. Still some areas we need to work on. Worked on those areas, fortified my boundaries and who I was, fortified who I was becoming, and met Lloyd. We know how that story ends, and it's still continuing, should we say. So it really, the universe will test you. It wants to give you this precious, most magnificent manifestation, but can you handle it? Can you handle it? And that's where the responsibility piece comes in. Can you handle responsibility for the most precious manifestation that you're calling into your life? And when you can, and when you're living in that hero state and it's emanating into your aura and it's really encompassing this beautiful version of you that just knows how to magnetically attract what you want in your life, that is when you'll move into the next level. That is when you'll go from being the misunderstood hero into the micromanaging hero. And there are similarities between the first level and the second level, because again, the second level is where you're going to try even harder, because now you're onto something and you're gaining momentum. But we're going to talk more about that tomorrow, where you learn how to move into trust. So I just want to take a moment and get some feedback from you. Does this make sense to you? Does the 3 archetypes of heroes make sense? Does the levels of manifestation make sense? And have you had any aha moments of like, oh, that's what I've been doing wrong. That's where I haven't been honoring myself. That's where I've been leaking the magic. Okay, that's where I've been leaking the magic. Okay, amazing. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay. And do you have any questions? So I'm going to check on Facebook as well, but let me know if you have any questions. And that is basically day 1. That is basically day 1. And it's just amazing when you understand it from this level, because often we think, oh, I'm doing this. And this is the ironic thing. And I know I've said this before, but I don't think I can emphasize it enough. So many people want to try and achieve or attain the superhero status. So you go all out trying to be the superhero. But if you're trying to attain being the superhero, you're actually being the anti-hero. The superhero just becomes you. The superhero emanates from you. You need to try and achieve being the hero. The hero is achieved once you embrace the anti-hero. And you can only do that through taking radical responsibility. When things aren't working out in your life, but why? For what purpose? And what is the bigger lesson that I need to learn here? And how can I then let go, heal, align, bring to my awareness what I need to learn and transmute from the situation? And when you can constantly do that, on a consistent basis, your life is going to change. Okay, beautiful question. What steps can you take to help with your worthiness? First step is to get very intimate with yourself, to understand everything. And this is not complicated. A lot of people think that this work needs to be harder than what it is. It's not easy. It's not easy. I will say that, but it's not complicated. It's actually through doing really simple steps consistently that you'll see the biggest change. So Liesl, I'm going to ask you, do you know what your favorite color is? Do you know what you like for dinner? Do you know how to make definitive decisions? Or are you always just like, oh, I don't know what I want, right? That's the first thing. If you can say that with every fiber of your being, you always know what you want, you always have like what you like, what you don't like, you know yourself that intimately. And there will be seasons, again, I have an open identity center. So sometimes I do know exactly who I am and where I'm going and what I want. And then there's times of change where I don't, and I have to get to relearn that, because we are all a continuous work in progress. We are always going through an evolutionary phase of our lives. So you do have to ask yourself these questions again and again and again. So do you know yourself to your core? That is where I do like to bring in human design, and where I do like to bring in Gene Key's work, because if you don't know who you are, then that is a great roadmap to help you start. But know who you are, because when you know who you are, you know what your values are. You know what your values are, and that's when you can put in place the healthy boundaries. I don't accept this kind of behavior in my life. I do accept this. This is a non-negotiable for me. This is what I don't want. This is what I do want. And it all starts with knowing yourself. The big scary problem that I see with so many people is that they think that they know themselves because of how society has conditioned us to believe we should be in order to receive success, celebration, reverence, and love, etc. And when people do that and work from that place, then the boundaries that they're putting into place is actually societal boundaries of what they have been conditioned to do, and not what they actually truly want. And that's when they also get pulled out of alignment. And that's when they get angry, bitter, disappointed, frustrated, right? So that's when I see people being pulled out of alignment. I actually have somebody in mind that does this so often. They have to prove at how busy they're being by always being in meetings and everything. And it's because they have so low self-worth. Their self-worth is so low that they need to try and prove that they're so important by being busy all the time. And then because they're always busy all the time, their boundaries are, well, you can only phone me between this time and this time, and you can only do this, but there's never an understanding of the other person. There's never an understanding of themselves. So that is the very big key component. That's the first step. Get to know yourself intimately. Get to know what makes you tick. And obviously, the simple things will lead to the bigger things of, well, what is my life's purpose? What is it that I want in a relationship? But you have to start with, what is my favorite color? And most people don't take the time because they think it's too simple. How can something that leads me to finding my life's purpose start with being so simple? How can it be so simple? It can't be that simple. It needs to be more complicated, because our human brains like to complicate everything. Everything. If it's simple, it's not working. If it's simple, I'm not putting in my biggest amounts of effort, and therefore it can't work. Start with the simple. It will change your life. Hope that helps. So any other questions? I see that there's no questions from Facebook. So I'm going to log off of Facebook. Thank you for those that have joined on Facebook. If you want to join on Zoom tomorrow, where we will have a little bit more time to have a closed conversation where there's no recording, it's just us and each other, then please sign up and you'll get the link. I'm going to stop Zoom. I just don't know how to. Okay, stop recording. So thank you